So here I am after another, I don't know what, O-level politics class. It's my second day of not begging. The lights out there don't seem to show on the camera. Today I met a girl in the park with a nice Canon camera. I asked her if she was a journalist. She said no, she's just a photographer. So I was pretty shocked when I saw that message for Boris Johnson come up in my recommendations. And then I took the trouble to look at the video description, only because I was checking the date. It was September 2020. It wasn't that long before I think, or was it after I got cuts in the face? I can't remember. And I mean, on its own, it sounds pretty lunatic, right? But if you'd follow the link to the blog post in which that video was embedded, and then you listen to those two interviews. One was Bill Binney, interviewed by Jimmy Dore, and the other was Seymour Hersh, interviewed by Afshan Rattansi. You kind of get an idea of what I was talking about. And I suppose you have to remember at the time as well, it was after the elections, right? Or was it before? And listen to what Sy Hersh says. He's pretty bloody incredible, that guy. He's a journalist. And now when people say that Vanessa Beeley's just a blogger and Vanessa Beeley doesn't know stuff, hello Vanessa. It's hard work, isn't it? I asked my daughter to get in touch with you. and my daughter just made a joke about Vanessa bedding. So, what is that supposed to mean? That she did contact you and you did, the network is that connected? I hope so. And my daughter's upset because I called her names on my blog, and she's not upset that I doxed her. That's more remarkable. And she still insists that, I sent her these messages, and I, thinking that, saying that I thought she was an imposter. Somebody at Cambridge should have explained to her how computers work, and how my concern has been computer security and software subversion in software development and systems and communications networks, and that's how I started. That's how I got into trouble, because I posted in 2013 on my blog. I think it was the first post on that Live Logic blog. I posted a way of ideas that I had, which I thought were constructive, which explained how we could have secure communications. And that seemed to be about when things just went pear-shaped. And it was in Venezuela. And that's when I ended up running for my life from Rurrenabaque. And then hearing that Maduro had people shot in the streets after the election, immediately after the election, because they contested the electronic voting system's results, and a recount was impossible, and there were demonstrations and people were shot and killed in the streets. And on that same post, in the Jailhouse Wrap September 2020 post, you'll see the UK reconstruction team, the Foreign Commonwealth officers, sorry, I got that wrong, it's a Freudian slip, the Foreign Commonwealth officers Venezuela reconstruction team at work. So I was sitting on my ass in the street next to Comteco doing all that stuff, and I was doing it day on day after day after day after day after day, and it was just never ending. And I was frustrated that people didn't seem to be taking in the connections that I was making explicit in those blog posts. And that's the context for my outburst. And I think that's the cool thing about social media. You don't need to go and cut the penis off some statue on the BBC in order to make a point. Or take a point. you can just make an asshole of yourself on social media. and yeah, you have to. It's going to be out there forever. So now I'm not supposed to, I'm sure it's embarrassing to be my daughter. That's what I always thought was the greatest. That was what I thought would be the greatest damage that I'd done my daughter, not calling her names. I just thought, my God, the stuff that must be out there, the pornography. I mean, it sounds like there somebody maybe had put a, man, I don't know because I haven't seen it, and for God's sake, I certainly don't search my own name in Google. I gave up searching. There's so many bloody Ian Grants in the world that you don't find anything. I've done it once or twice, and I've done it on contexts like Facebook or GitHub. But I don't know, that was the stuff that I thought that would be awful for her. Not my calling her names. I mean, if I'm not justified in calling her names, and I'm just a mad bastard on cocaine in the street in Cochabamba thinking he's an intelligence analyst and thinking that he's being rather grossly exploited by various agencies who should be doing their own jobs a hell of a lot better, because all they fucking need to do is watch YouTube videos in order to understand, get a big picture of the crap that's going on. I was a member of Vanessa Beeley's Telegram channel for a while, until I asked a question of her. I said, what, because her father was the British ambassador to Egypt during the Suez crisis, and I asked her she has her father's papers, and that's how she got an interest in journalism, was through her father's notes of the time when he was an ambassador. And I asked her, perhaps I shouldn't have, but I said, what was your father's opinion of Knights of Malta and Freemasonry and the British establishment and all the nonsense that must have been going on between Israel and Egypt and the United Kingdom and the United States during the Suez crisis. And there's a lot more that's interesting in that. I mean, God, that whole thing. And I'm sure that the ramifications of that are part of what was the war in Yemen is hangovers from that. You can't get rid of those problems. The British in Aden and the Italians and I'm sitting in the street doing this. I'm doing it, and I did it for years. I did it for years. And people just, I don't know. What on earth did you think I was? I don't know. I'm just speechless. I know I wasn't, you know, I know it wasn't original material, but I was just pointing out the connections that are completely obvious if you just listen to what people are saying. And those connections show you what you need to do to solve the problem. And what you need to do is some facing up and some cleaning out. And, you know, you can't have secret Venezuelan reconstruction projects, and you can't send trade missions to Cochabamba to talk about a bi-oceanic railway with Evo Morales, which takes a railway from the Pacific to the Atlantic and takes it through the highest country in South America. Please. I don't know if I'm visible in this. But that's what was happening, you know? And I'm just reading this bilge coming out of the Britain about Russians, and it's still going on. And you're quarantining people coming into the country for 10 days in a hotel if they're not vaxxed. I mean, if they are vaccinated, is that okay? You don't quarantine them. Because this disease is so dangerous. This just doesn't. And you're worried about terrorism on the streets of Britain, Islamic extremists and things.